Hello and welcome to another edition of GEVA Live, where we go over some amazing rules with some great officials. Tonight, this evening, today, whenever you might be listening, I have with me Tim Countryman, Daniel Sam, and Londa Marvini. Thank you again for all coming. So this segment, we want to go over two things: numbers, numbers, numbers. Number of subs allowed and number of liberos allowed. And kind of even how those things can change or be modified, back and forth too. If I start with one, can I have two? If somebody gets hurt, am I allowed to have extra subs? And I think we got into that a little bit on a previous show as well. So Daniel's going to kind of take the New York side. Londa's going to take the New Jersey high school side. Tim's going to come in with the USA, maybe NCAA interpretations. And we're going to see how well we can lay this idea down. So I'll start with Londa, and thank you so much for joining us in the car. I know you had a little trouble here and there on the trails. I hear it was a great day outside. I know it was beautiful when I was out there. So, excellent. Londa, as far as number of subs go in New Jersey high school, what can you tell us?
Well, we follow the NFHS rules, so it is 18 substitutions. And as we mentioned before, substitutions, unlike USA, is you're allowed to basically three ways: verbalize from a coach, signal from a coach, or the player comes into the sub zone to be recognized. And then as far as officials go, because it is 18 and it's not 12 or 15, you need to let them know, the coach know, at the 15th, 16th, 17th, and 18th substitution.
Okay, and then I think, all right, I'm going to wait on my question because I think this gets into good discussion points on both sides. So Daniel, same thing on the New York side. How many subs are we allowed?
We also allowed 18, and then we start notifying the coach at 15, the same as New Jersey. And then at the 18, you also notify the R1 that this is the last sub for that team. So 18, you notify both the coach and the R1.
Okay, so far I'm hearing similar things, 18 and 18 in high school. Tim, you're going to keep it simple for me, right?
Oh, sure, by making it different. Coaches need to be a little more efficient. Coaches need to be a little more efficient in USA Volleyball. They only get a dozen. If we're talking about advanced warning, that comes at 9. And I could throw in NCAA, who splits the difference. They meet at 15.
Correct. So, all right. So the next obvious question I have as a coach myself is, oh my gosh, the official didn't tell me I only have 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 subs left. It's your fault. It's, in my opinion, it's just a courtesy, and it's always me as a coach's responsibility. Am I not correct, Tim?
You are correct. We try to help, but ultimately, it's going to be your responsibility for managing your team. Believe it or not, we have a lot going out on the floor we have to concentrate on. And sometimes we're trying to break in a newer scorer, and they might not be as efficient at letting us know when we're starting to run out of subs. So we ask for understanding, but we do remind you it is the coach's responsibility.
Got it. So now the other thing that I think Londa said that I think is important is that in high school, a coach can verbally request a substitution, and that sub in turn gets granted. Is that the same in USA, Tim?
No, only one way to get a sub, and that's to have the player appear in the sub zone and ready to play.
Understood. So if I, as a coach, am yelling sub, that's meaningless and just will be totally ignored and could possibly maybe even result in a warning or a yellow card if I get too aggressive with it?
Well, it could. I did mention that we try to facilitate, right?
Correct.
If we know something's trying to go on, we're not going to try and hurry the next serve. We'll give you ample opportunity to have your player appear, and we'll probably talk to you while the scorer is administering the sub on the paper. Remind you that you need to have the player moving, not your lips.
Awesome. Thank you. Cool. Yeah, Daniel, Londa, anything else on subs you want us to be aware of? I guess, other things that you want players or coaches to be mindful of, I guess for me would be, you kind of got to enter the entire sub zone in USA. You can't just kind of stumble to the line. Until you break that threshold of the line, you have not broken the line. And I think a lot of young players tend to kind of hang around the line instead of enter the sub zone. So I don't know if you guys want to, Daniel, would you agree with that?
Yeah, we tell them that if you want to sub, you're coming into the sub zone or somebody verbalize the request for a sub. We also emphasize the fact that when you're asking for a sub, you better be ready to come in and sub in, right? So in some cases, you have the player at that time is removing the warm-up suit, including pants and tops, and that kind of delays the sub a little bit. So when you see that happening the first time, you kind of warn them, listen, when you're saying sub, please run into the sub zone so we can facilitate that a little bit faster so we don't impact the tempo of the game. So you always talk to them to try and make them understand that, you want the sub, let's facilitate that as quickly as possible.
Very good. So here's another one too that I just thought about off the top of my head. I'm going to kind of put you guys on the spot a little bit. A ball from another court comes onto my court, whistle is blown, replay. I want to make a sub. Am I allowed to in high school and in USA? Tim, you want to take that one?
Sure. First of all, I excuse me. I'd let everybody know that a ball rolling on the court isn't an automatic replay. If the ball is going to interfere with where the play is going on, we would stop it for safety reasons. But if the ball's rolling across the back of the court and the play's at the net, then there's no reason to stop play. We'd let the ball clear and let the players decide the end of the rally. What you're referring to, John, is an incomplete rally, an interrupted rally, and no other administrative actions can take place until after the end of the rally. We'll replay the rally, and then at the end of the rally, we can consider timeouts and substitutions. If a rally is interrupted, we can put the players back in the right position with a lineup check request.
Fair enough. Londa, same thing with high school, I assume, or is it different?
Yes, it is the same. I guess the big thing when Tim was talking about a ball rolling on, even if it's in the end line area and not in and around where the ball is being played, at least for high school in New Jersey, they are a little more stringent on being careful and safety. So more times than not, it would be an instant replay the minute a ball rolls onto the court, no matter where it is. But, I mean, I understand with USAV, it's a big difference because you're having an all-day tournament. And if you constantly stop for every ball that's rolling, we would be there till 10 o'clock at night.
Fair enough. Good. Daniel, anything else to add on that? I think we've, learned a lot in this question, just, little slightly different interpretations, just keeping everybody safe. But it's really the judgment of the official to make that safety, judgment. And, you can't call a timeout after a replay. You can't do subs after a replay. You got the team you got. Is it the same in New York too?
Yes, it is. It's the same. The safety issue comes into play if the ball rolls onto the court. You might have a player reacting to the ball, and then the coach wants to replay. Like Tim said, the ball is in the backcourt, plays at the net. Even if the player in the backcourt react to it, really no impact on the play. You try to explain that to them. Usually the coach that loses the rally wants to replay automatically because his player or her player reacts to it. And you kind of explain to them that's really unnecessary only because that had no impact. The reaction of the player had no impact on the play whatsoever. So you kind of to explain that to them so you facilitate that. But we don't do
one way to, I'm sorry, Daniel. One way to phrase it is there's a difference between being distracted by the ball and the ball interfering with play.
That's correct.
Distracted is a player problem. Safety is our problem.
That's correct.
Awesome. Good to know. So yeah, the next phase is the number of liberos. So relatively still a very new rule compared to most rules and the idea of libero. And the number of liberos that we are allowed to use in high school, in club, in USA, internationally, in NCAA, and kind of the changes that go with each of those. We already talked about the uniform differences with liberos, so we're going to stay away from that conversation this time. Just how many liberos am I allowed to use? Which one has to play first? And how do I write that on my lineup sheet? All those little things, and when can they go back and forth? How do they exchange in a game? I think there's a lot of little nuances to the use of liberos that I think definitely a lot of parents don't understand, and maybe even some coaches don't quite understand the full use of them either. Daniel, I'll give this one to you first on the high school side.
We do one libero. We can have multiple players being libero, but one of them per set, and you can change it based on the number of sets that you play. So you can have number 15 in the first set and number 25 in the second set, and subsequently change it for all the sets that you play, but we only allow one libero per set.
Awesome, awesome. Londa, same thing for New Jersey High School. How many liberos
Same
am I?
thing with New Jersey. Yep, same thing.
Awesome, awesome. So Tim, same question, obviously a little bit different, whether we're talking about, let's stick with USA Club for now.
Okay, you're not even going to ask me to keep it simple, are you? Whether or not a team plays with one or two liberos starts with the first set. If one or none are designated for the first set, multiple players can play as libero during that match, but you're limited to one or no liberos per set. If a team starts with two liberos designated for the first set, those are the two liberos for the entire match.
Fair enough. Good. Yeah. So I'm going to ask a secondary question. I'm not even sure of the answer of this. In high school, if my libero in set one is injured, may I replace that player, or do I have to not have a libero for the rest of that set? Daniel, do you know the answer to that one?
Yeah, you can redesignate if because of injury, the libero cannot continue the set. You can redesignate. You don't have to redesignate right away, but you have the ability to assign another libero for that set. Yes.
Gotcha. And then Tim, I assume, and I could be way wrong, and this is what I get for assuming, if I have two, then it already takes care of itself. But what if I only have one? And what's the rule for USA in this case, if there is one?
Okay, this is a situation where we'll want to have a discussion with coach and let coach know what the options are. If the libero needs to be replaced, the original libero is done for the rest of the match. So you might want to be a little bit judicious in replacing. Mm-hmm. A replacement can be done immediately, or a coach can wait until the players have that coach would want to be libero come off the court, and then redesignate from a player on the bench to fill the libero position.
Good to know. Good to know. All right. So thank you for that. Now, if there's one other one, and if this doesn't work out, we can always cut this out later. One of these weird situations that I've seen happen over my coaching career. So a libero has just come out of the game and a timeout has been called. Both teams leave the court and now re-enter the court, and the libero magically has reappeared onto the court. Am I correct that the libero should not be on the court and they have to stay out for one rally? But sometimes this, I feel like, is missed by coaches, referees, parents, and players, or am I misinterpreting that rule? Londa and Daniel, any on the high school side?
So you're saying, for example, if the libero is on the court and then they take a timeout?
Correct. So this is
they have to be back on the court.
Right. So the libero has just left the court because they have been exchanged, a legal exchange. One team calls a timeout. Do they have to stay off the court for one more point, or can they come back on?
Yeah. Yeah, you have to wait for one completed rally to occur.
Okay. Daniel, anything else on that? I feel like this is go ahead.
It's a completed rally or point awarded, right? So the completed rally will be like you have a serve and then the rally is completed, or if there is a sanction at that time that rewards a point, then the libero is allowed to go back in.
Yep. And I think
one pretty big situation that's the exception to that, when the libero becomes the server, there is no need to sit for rally on that one.
That is correct.
The libero can serve in one rotation. Especially in USA volleyball, where there's two liberos, each libero doesn't get their own rotation to serve in. There's only the one rotation where libero can serve.
Fair enough. No, good. Yeah, I think, I've seen coaches that either don't understand that rule or coaches that take advantage of that situation. So I just wanted to make it clear for both sides. So I thank you.
Libero tracker is often thought of as the the lesser of the two scorers, maybe, and situations do occur where the tracker can be a big help. It's not a make work position. It's a position that actually contributes to the match.
Absolutely, absolutely.
To stand on that, John, it's a very misconception at a high school level that if the libero walks off the court, then they can walk back in without a point. They think the walk off is sufficient, which is a very big misunderstanding as opposed to either a completed rally or a point rewarded. So I've had that experience where you have to actually explain to the captain that libero is not allowed to go back in because we haven't had one of those two conditions, and the libero, like Tim says, is not going to be the next server. And it's always like, oh, the player will walk off. No, yeah, but that's not enough, right? You always have that situation. I know I've encountered that many times.
Fair enough. No, thank you all for those interpretations and that, that one, little example that we had to define there. And I think that's a great one to talk about that just makes people a little bit more aware and better coaches, players, and volleyball parents. So this is the end of this segment. We will certainly join you next time with our next 3 or 4 topics of discussion, and have a great day.
Thank you, John.